I thought I was safe in my own home. Until I looked out the bathroom window, a stranger was watching me. And that's when I realized it wasn't a joke. Short story version of a really terrifying thing that happened to me. It is all true. There are some wonderful things about being young, poor, and in love. Sadly, this is about none of those things. When I was 22, I decided to move in with my equally poor boyfriend. Unfortunately, poor plus poor still equals mostly poor. But not so destitute that we couldn't afford an apartment in a college town. We happily moved into our little one-bedroom, first-floor apartment. Sure, it had problems. The lead-based paint was so thick we were sure we could survive a nuclear attack. The bathroom didn't have a vent. Instead, it had a window in the shower. The appliances were from the time of my grandmother, but it was home. Our home. We loved it. My boyfriend worked the graveyard shift and I worked days, so we spent a lot of time apart. That meant that when we were together, we enjoyed the simple things in life, a lot of naked time. Over time, when I was waking up and taking my morning shower, my boyfriend, who was just getting home, realized that he could come up to our open shower window and sneak a peek. I always caught him. It was in good fun, and we laughed. Eventually, I started to notice there was a log standing upright outside of that window. I continually asked him why he would need that. He was tall enough already. He'd claim it wasn't his and move it away when I went outside to show him. Yet every few days, it would move right back. The guys who cared for the yard were there several times a week, so they must have just been moving it back. Finally, before the snow fell, the yard workers cleared away all the yard debris and we went on in peaceful oblivion. Candy-coated, love-filled oblivion. Time went on and our lease was up, but there was a great special at our cheap apartment complex. We could now rent 2 bedrooms, even cheaper than our 1 bedroom. We happily signed the new lease. The only real problem was that our 1 bedroom was on a nice street, facing houses, so we never really noticed how bad our neighborhood was. We were moved to the other end of the community, behind an abandoned strip mall. Our front yard consisted of a dark alley and some dumpsters behind a recently vacated Chinese buffet where a lot of stray cats seemed to live. None of this mattered in our dimly lit front yard though. Our apartment was super cheap and super huge. What more could we ask for? That year, we were so happy that my boyfriend went to buy me a ring on Valentine's Day. Being young and giddy in love, he wasn't able to keep the secret, and I told him yes before he could even ask the question. He didn't have a lot of money, so he bought a ring with the help of a friend's father who owned a jewelry store. He got a good price, but with the drop in price came less detail. I was devastated when he brought home the ring, along with our wedding band set, to find out that someone had mistaken my very tiny for ring size with a 12. My rings were made for monster hands. What a terrible way to start our engagement. Clearly they needed to go back, so he put them in his glove box, but then a snowstorm prevented him from taking them back that day. The next day he went to his car. He found that it had been broken into. Nothing had been taken, except the rings from the glove box. We never did have the money to replace them. We personally went to every pawn shop in the area, and everybody said they hadn't seen anything. I began to be jealous any time I'd see a woman with large fingers wearing a silver ring with Celtic knotwork. I kept telling myself her boyfriend stole my ring. Winter passed and summer came. With the summer came the warm breezes and the fresh air through our open windows. What the summer didn't bring was more money, not for us, and not for the city. We lost our phone service for non-payment, but it didn't matter. The only people we talked to were each other anyway. Meanwhile, the city cut police and even closed a few stations, most of them in our neighborhood. It didn't matter though, summer days are long and our dingy little corner of the community wasn't at all intimidating in the daylight. One night my husband-to-be turned in for the night early and so I decided that after a long day, what I really needed was a nice soak in the bath. I walked into the bathroom and began to run the water, adding my bath salts and bubble bath. I opened the window. I opened it for that nice summer breeze and took off my clothes and dumped them in a pile by the open bathroom door. I then grabbed my laptop to set on the closed toilet seat so I could relax in the tub with a movie. This would be at least 2 hours of pure bliss. Nothing beats a long soak in my book. I turned the volume up on my laptop and relaxed the hours away with one movie and then another. What must have been for hours later, I pulled the plug on the drain and sat while the water swirled away. I slowly stood up and stretched and dried off, the now cool night air hitting my face through the window. I figured I'd just leave that open though, the apartment could use the airing out. I stepped out of the tub and across the bathroom. I didn't bother to move my pile of clothes, instead stepping around them in a manner to get out the partially open bathroom door. This move put me looking back into the bathroom, right out the window, where I saw a tall man. At first I was startled, but quickly realized it was just my fiancé playing a trick on me, like he used to do at our old apartment. Then I saw his eyes, up to high in the window, and everything in my head began to swim. I couldn't scream, I couldn't move, I could only stand there, naked and stare. Then everything came into startling detail. He was standing up on something so high up that I could see his full torso in the window. His full torso and his penis. There was a man outside my window jerking off. The motion drew my attention to his hand. Everything happened in a split second after I saw him. While I was frozen to the spot, I noticed he was wearing a silver ring with Celtic knotwork on it. I made a mental note of ways to identify him as I finally unfroze and ran to the bedroom. "There's a man outside the bathroom window," I said so fast my fiancé couldn't understand as he woke up. "What?" he asked. I repeated, "There's a man outside the bathroom window. He's jerking off. He was watching me. Oh my God, make him go away." I was finally in hysterics as everything sunk in. That man could have been there, hovering over me for hours. The only thing separating us was a thin screen. When I had stood up, his penis was inches from my face, his body towering over me. I just kept covering myself with blankets and telling my fiancé to make him go away. By the time he woke up to check, nobody was there. There was only a log, standing upright like a step, outside our bathroom window. In the aftermath, we filed a police report, but had no phones to call, so had to drive a good 20 minutes away to do so. Then they didn't have enough forces to do anything about the situation anyway. We didn't have the money to break our lease. Instead, we spent the rest of the year living in fear. I covered every window with black contact paper. I wedged boards into every window so they couldn't be opened. The bathroom window never again opened. I never left without pepper spray. I never left after dark. But for the rest of that year, most nights, I'd hear a faint noise outside our bedroom window, which was next to our bathroom. In the morning, when my fiancé would check it out, there were imprints in the ground, as if somebody had recently been standing there. I wish I could say this is just a story. I wish I could say that. But it is all the truth of 3 long years of my life. I still can't sleep at night. Lights off, shadows moving. Then the tall man appeared. I froze. My heart was racing. During the summer when I was home from college, I worked with a couple of friends as a morning cleaner at the local movie theater. It was fairly new, built in the early 90s, with 3 big screen rooms, for mid-sized screens and 3 small screens. My job as morning cleaner was to clean all the screening rooms. During a shift that went from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m., it would take me about 20 minutes to get to work from where I lived. The theater was out in an area that was kind of in the middle of nowhere. Before the area was renovated, we were told it was part wetland, farmland, and the rest owned by the local nature center. The first couple of weeks that I worked there, nothing out of the ordinary happened. Typically, there would only be 2 or 3 of us working a shift. There was a lot of time spent by yourself, cleaning and listening to your iPod. Occasionally, we'd meet up with the day shift in the morning and give them a breakdown of maintenance issues that we were dealing with, and other things they'd like us to look at. One day in particular, my manager asked me if we had noticed the front doors being unlocked when we arrived in the morning. When I said no, the manager went on to tell me that customers were complaining about a tall, lanky man in a suit. Primarily women were complaining that this man had been following them from theater to theater, and sometimes into the bathroom. Several times women had come to the front desk, frightened out of their minds, describing a 7-foot-tall man in a black suit, complete with bowler cap, that walked slowly after them. A few times even the police were called. Teenagers that worked the day shift referred to him as the tall man. While he primarily targeted women, occasionally a male coworker would catch a glimpse of him, sneaking into a theater. On a couple of occasions they would pursue him, thinking it was someone trying to sneak into a movie, only to find nobody there. We had 12 theater rooms total, but Theater 5 was the worst. Nobody wanted to clean out Theater 5. When I first started, I was fairly naive about ghosts and spirits. I didn't understand why even my boss was apprehensive about Theater 5 and kept assigning me to be the one to clean it out. What made Theater 5 unique was that it sat behind the bathrooms in the lobby, so to get to the sitting area you had to walk down a long hallway before reaching the screening room. Being that far back, you were the most secluded, especially when it's 4 a.m. and the only other people are far away. People cleaning there would complain of nosebleeds, constant headaches, and a feeling of being watched. My first supernatural experience took place here. It was a normal morning. I had just finished sweeping out the lobby and I was taking care of the cups and other garbage in Theater 5. By routine, you go through and throw away leftover cups and popcorn before vacuuming and sweeping the area. I had my iPod on, and as I was going through throwing cups away, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was behind me. I kept turning around, even at some points taking out my earphones and shouting, "Hello." Of course there was nobody there. Like I said, it was a normal morning and I had no reason to suspect anything. I went about my routine. About 20 minutes later, I'm at the top back row, sweeping under the seats. Suddenly I hear footsteps, someone running. I look down, and at the front of the theater, I catch a glimpse of a little blonde-haired boy turning the corner into the long hallway as he ran out of the theater. Immediately I threw down my broom and chased after him. I ran down the hallway and out into the lobby, but there was no kid. I walked further and saw my boss through the front entrance, on a smoke break. "Who was that kid?" I asked. My boss, Jeff, looked at me. For a moment he was confused, but then he laughed. I'll never forget how casually he said it. "So you met Charlie." Charlie was another thing customers constantly complained about. On several occasions they claimed a little blonde-haired boy was running up and down the aisles in the theater, causing noise and ruckus during the movie. Of course, it was in Theater 5. When an usher would come to apprehend the child, he would have already disappeared. The female staff affectionately named him Charlie, after his resemblance to the character in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Charlie was also responsible for knocking several cans of garbage over, throwing papers around, misplacing things, and generally making being a morning cleaner a real pain. Charlie was more of a nuisance. We used to theorize that he was the son of the tall man, but the two were never seen together. My only encounter with the tall man came a couple weeks after my run-in with Charlie. I had yet to hear about him at this point. Had I known, I most likely would have quit sooner rather than later. Usually in the morning, if you're the first to arrive, it's your job to walk up into the projector rooms. There you have to turn on the lights in all theaters. This is an easy task, except the top floor with the projects has a lot of life-size cutouts of movie characters and massive posters, and in the dark it can be a little creepy. I had done this several times before, and since I was the first to arrive, I go about turning all the lights on. The projector area itself is dark. Typically we'd carry a flashlight with us. That morning I couldn't find the flashlight. We'd later find it in the garbage. Charlie's fault, so I walked through the dark hallway of projectors, flipping all the switches. I had stayed up all night prior, watching the Andy Griffith Show. I remember because I was whistling the theme song to myself as I walked down the corridor. Once again I got that feeling of being watched, and something several yards away. In the area with the projectors overlooking the IMAX theater rooms, something was staring back at me. I stopped whistling and tried to focus my eyes. It was a cardboard cutout. They were everywhere, so I kind of dismissed it and was about to flip the next switch when the cutout moved. I froze. What I thought was a cutout was actually a figure hunched over. Quietly it was whistling the Andy Griffith theme song. It was imitating me, only doing it much more slowly. Slowly it rose up from its crouch, revealing itself to be at least 7 feet tall. It was a man. All I could see was a silhouette against the red exit sign lights and some of the projector computer monitors. It started toward me, whistling quietly. I wanted to move, but my feet were cemented in the spot and I had cotton for a tongue. I didn't know what to do. Slowly the tall man stepped toward me. He walked with a bit of a waddle, as if he had a bit of a limp in his left leg. I couldn't exactly tell. He had taken about 3 or 4 steps toward me when something caught his attention, and he turned and walked into an office down the hall. I turned back and ran down the steps and waited outside the theater until my boss and the rest of the crew arrived. I told them what had happened and they explained that the tall man existed, but he wasn't going to hurt me. I didn't care. That experience alone was enough to make me put in my 2 weeks. A white werewolf rose beside my bed, silently snarling. I hid under blankets, paralyzed with fear. And it wasn't real. Or was it? I'm a little late to this party, but perhaps someone will read it. This is the first time I have actually ever told any living soul. I tried talking about it to my then GF, now wife, but I realized how crazy I sounded and stopped. In reading several of these, I am somewhat comforted by knowing other people are similar to me in that they see things, or have an overactive imagination, as one Redditor stated it. For years now, I have seen things at different times, things that I know aren't there. It's almost always normal human shapes obscured by the shadows or sometimes distinct people. They never talk or anything to me, they are simply there, rarely moving. It started happening when I was very young. I would play basketball in our basement. I was very little, and there were 2 rooms off in the corners of the big room. Through those doorways, I would frequently see shadowy figures darting back and forth. A couple times I saw a brief glimpse of a face glancing at me. The skin was a pale grayish tan. He was bald, save for the typical horseshoe. This hair was pure white and very straggly and long. Horrible teeth as well. Fucker needed a dentist in a bad way. It got so bad I eventually got too scared to be down there by myself. We moved away from that house when I was 12, and my new house's basement was less scary with no shadowy figures for a time. As I entered my teens, I would occasionally see strange things, mostly in mirrors or the reflections in windows, or out of the corner of my eye. But since I was a little older, I reasoned it to my eyes just playing tricks on me, and I learned to ignore it, as the images weren't too frightening in nature, repetitive, or that memorable. They were just there from time to time. It was always quick images at this point, flashes of something lasting seconds or less. It did get worse. This worst and most vivid time I experienced something this: I was going down my rear stairwell into my basement. Directly to the left of the bottom of the stairs was our laundry room, in which the light was always kept off. So this stairway and the door was always dimly lit. As I descended the stairs and headed right, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a hooded figure dressed in all black standing in the doorway of the laundry room. His hands were balled up into fists at his side, and his head was looking down so that the hood obscured his face in shadow. As I walked down the hallway away from the laundry room, I looked back once more, just as the doorway was leaving my sight, and I saw the head look up towards me. All I could see were pale blue eyes. Not unnaturally pale blue eyes, just a normal pale blue, which probably made it scarier for me. My basement was pitch black, so I walked a little faster and pulled on the chain to turn on the light. Once I had illuminated the room, I realized I was pretty scared, breathing heavy and obviously rustled. But there was nothing else in there with me. Once I regained my senses, convinced myself I was just tired, I ran towards the laundry room and flicked on the lights. There was nothing there. I blamed it on my eyes playing tricks on me. Over the course of the next few months, this happened at least 3 more times. Same exact scenario, so much so that I finally got fed up with it. I would have a feeling of dread spread over me every time it happened. Hairs standing on end. Nothing felt warm. I just was cold and scared. I felt so ridiculous. I was in my mid-teens at this point and basically felt that I was being a huge baby. Luckily, it stopped. I still occasionally have weird things that I see. I know they aren't there, and I have learned to just ignore them. I mentioned my GF wife. There was an incident where I think she might have noticed. I hadn't seen anything in a long time. Her family and me and my friends were vacationing in the OBX, and we went for a walk down to the fishing pier. We walked to the end of the pier and just talked there for a while. During this time, a small blonde girl walked up on my left side, opposite my GF, and just stood there silently staring at me. I didn't say anything, but I couldn't stop looking over at her. I obviously was doing a pretty shitty job of listening to my GF, and she asked what I kept looking at, confirming to me that the girl was not actually present. Haven't seen that girl since. I remember this so distinctly because it is the only time I ever saw anything in the middle of the day, as clear as I see anything else. Every other time it was always in the darkness, shadows, mirrors, or window reflections, hence why I knew it was just my imagination being an asshole. The girl did look like someone I had met before though. Strange. Oh shit. I just remember possibly a scarier and more frequent one I had at night. My bed was butted up against a wall, and I would sleep almost wedged right up against it. On the exposed side, I would often see a pure white werewolf slowly rising on the side of my bed. First, only the ears were visible, but almost painfully slowly the thing would rise until the neck and above would be staring right at me, silently snarling. It was so quiet. It would rise slowly, but before anything was visible, I felt like I could sense that it was over there. So I'd roll over just in time to see its painstakingly slow and terrible rising. That fucking scared the shit out of me for a long time. I would roll over and hide in my impenetrable blanket, safe from everything. Then I finally tried to attack it, and I confirmed what I knew. It wasn't really there. I think this was when I was around 13. Currently, nothing really happens. I sleep incredibly poorly, always have. Maybe that's why I see things. And occasionally, when I awake in the middle of the night, I'll see something, but I don't acknowledge it. I just give everything a mental fuck off. It's almost like a very infrequent and subtle background, cameo, or Easter egg to my own life. I don't ever plan on letting any of my friends or family know because it really doesn't matter and just makes me sound like a fucking loon. If I ever am robbed or broken into and I awoke to investigate, if the thief stood still, I'd probably dismiss him entirely. Free product for robbing me right there.